Hello everyone, welcome to your Pusheen Mermaid painting class. Today in front of you, you should have your canvas with your Pusheen Mermaid sketch, a cup of water, paper towel, your larger and smaller brush. Also be sure you have your yellow, brown, light blue, black, white, green, your darker blue, your purple, and your red paint. If you do not have all those items in front of you, you are welcome to push pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you want to do is grab your two brushes and you want to wash them by twirling them around in your cup of water, getting them nice and clean. Once you're done twirling them around for a little bit, go ahead and pat them on your paper towel to get them nice and dry. So wash your brush and then dry your brush. Good job. You are going to use your bigger brush, so you can put your small brush aside for the first step. Also for the first step, you're going to be mixing some white into your brown and making a lighter brown for the background. So everything behind all these little areas you're going to want to make a light brown. So big brush for your first step. If you want to take a nice big scoop of white, bring it over to your brown, mix it. So you're going to take a scoop of white, mix it with your brown. Just going to wipe off the sides. I think I'm going to do 2 scoops with my white today. So I'm going to go back, another scoop of white, bring it over to my brown, and mix a nice light brown. Almost like a sandy light brown. Make sure your brown and your white have been mixed well. Once you're done mixing, you can just wipe off the sides so you don't have too much big chunks of paint on there. But I mixed my white over to my brown and got it to a nice light brown mix, almost like a sandy one. I did 2 scoops of white over to my brown. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to go around my Pusheen cat. So I'll start underneath here where kind of the belly is. I'll do my best not to get any brown on the Pusheen cat. So underneath the belly, underneath the arm area, I'm going to outline with my light brown so I know where to stop. So I'm going to slowly make a bubble around my Pusheen cat. And if you want, you can use your smaller brush to kind of get into those smaller spaces. But I am going to just make a nice big bubble, doing my best not to get any on my Pusheen cat. This outline just kind of lets me know where to stop. Making nice, long, smooth lines. Be careful of that seaweed. Smooth out your paint if you have any big bumps. So all we did was mix 2 scoops of white in our brown and make a bubble around our Pusheen cat. You can also make a bubble around your shells and around your seaweed so you know where to stop. And make a bubble around this guy, down here, and then this guy right here. And then around your seaweed as well. Once you're done making a bubble around those 4 spaces, then you can paint everything behind them light brown. So everything behind them can be light brown. Just be careful not to get any on your Pusheen cat, on your shells, or on your seaweed. There you go. So all 4 areas I've outlined with my brown paint, with my brown and white paint. And again, once you're done, you can go back and grab your brown and white paint and start painting all that background brown and white. So I'm just going to be painting all that stuff. And again, if you need to get into smaller areas, like right here, or anywhere that's kind of hard to get to, you can switch to your small brush. Be very careful on painting those 4 things that we outlined. And I'm just painting with my same big brush, an up and down formation. I'm going over my lines a little bit too that I just made, so you won't be able to see them as much. Just be super careful. I'll also be painting the 4 sides of my canvas in just a bit. And if you are still working on your outline, not a problem. Just start down here, but you can start above your Pusheen cat if you want, but it's going to start down here. Paint all these little areas. I did go over my lines a little bit, but not too far. Kind of break them up. I'm going to use my small brush to kind of touch up around those smaller areas. Smooth it out. Here and get into those little areas too. Perfect. I'm going to get my brush a little bit wet, so I'm going to put in my water and tap it on my paper towel if it got a little bit too dry. Also, if you add water and then tap it on your paper towel about 5 or 6 times and go over your paint, it'll help your paint move a little bit easier. Sometimes it tends to get a little stuck, but you don't have to. If you feel like your paint is moving nicely on your canvas, you don't have to add water to your brush. But just be sure every time you do, you pat it on your paper towel several times. All this background space is going to be light brown. And I do recommend 2 coats, which means you're going to paint it once, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go back and give it a second coat. That'll help kind of get into those spaces that you still see peeking through with your white canvas. It'll make it look more solid, which means that you won't be able to see that white canvas as much. Give it a nice second coat. So paint it once, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go back with a second coat. I'm going to start painting the 4 sides of my canvas now. Start with the bottom, painting side to side. The sides, kind of painting up and down. Oops, excuse me. I'm going to slowly paint all that background space, including the 4 sides, that light brown. Back for more. way. So all 4 sides are painted. All that space behind the Pusheen cat and the shells, the seaweed are also gonna be painted this light brown. And again, I do definitely recommend going back and giving this brown a second coat, touching up any areas you might have missed, using your small brush to kind of go in there and get any spots that might have been too hard with your big brush. If you got some on your Pusheen cat, a couple of things to think about. You can let your mistake dry and then go over with white to white it out and then build on top of it again. Or when we go in there and paint our Pusheen cat, the gray is going to go over the brown. So just be sure you have enough gray. And up here with the blues and the pinks, you can just be sure your paint is thick enough to where it's going to go over any brown that might have gotten there. But again, 2 coats definitely recommended. If you are still working on your brown, you are welcome to pause the video. I'm going to add a little bit of white to mine. I think mine got a little bit darker than I wanted. Just a little bit lighter. So if you feel like yours is still a little bit too dark, you can go over it with just a little bit white to lighten it up. Mine looks darker on film than it does in real life, so I want to make sure it kind of looks nice and neat on there as well. So I just added some white, tap on my brush, and I go over those areas. I don't want. If you feel like your brown is too dark still, you can go in there and add some white on top. Mine is just coming off really dark on camera, so I want to make sure it doesn't look too dark. Going back in there with another coat. Added a little bit of white to my brush just to kind of lighten mine up. It looks really dark on camera. Perfect. Can even do the 4 sides, lighten those sides up. Get it to a nice light brown. Be sure to give it 2. If you feel like after 2 coats it still doesn't look clean enough, you can go in there, let it dry, and give it a 3rd coat so it gives really good coverage. So I would probably go back and give mine a 3rd coat after letting it dry for a couple minutes. Once I'm done, I'm gonna wash and dry both of my brushes. So again, if you're still working on your 2nd or 3rd coat, you're welcome to pause the video. So wash and dry. Perfect. All right, so once you're done washing and drying, you can see some wet spots that are still kind of shiny. Just be aware of those wet spots and not getting any colors close to them. So if a wet color touches another wet color, it is going to dry. Get this brush a little bit cleaner. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to paint this kind of area with a darker gray and a lighter gray. You're going to grab your small brush and you're going to grab some white on your small brush and a dot of black. So just like, almost like a googly eye, like a dot of black in your white. And maybe just going to wipe off some of the sides so you don't have too much on there. But these 3 little sections are going to be this darker gray that you're going to create. So I'm going in there with my white and a dot of black. I wipe some off on my paper towel so I don't have a big chunk. And then I'm going to go in there. I am going to go over my pencil lines. Be aware of any shiny brown areas. If you want your gray to be darker, you can always go back and add a little bit of black. Pat it off on your paper towel so there's not too much on there. Then kind of go over it. You do want it to be like a pencil lead gray, so a nice medium gray. So white with a dot of black, and then go in there in those 3 little areas. Perfect. Looks good. And then you're going to wash and dry your small brush and put it off to the side. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of focus on this area a little bit more. This gray is going to be lighter than this gray, but I'm going to kind of have the same idea but with my big brush. I'm going to dip my big brush in my white and have a dot of black, so kind of like a googly eye. And then I'm going to go in there and paint all this area gray. I do feel like it's still a little bit too dark, so I'm going to go back and add some white to my brush to lighten it up, because I definitely want this gray to be lighter than that gray. Once I have a good gray on my brush too, I can kind of go in there and outline these areas with my big brush. So I have this nice gray that I'm going to use. And I did put my brush in there nice with a good amount of force. I have a lot of gray on there. But let's say you don't feel like you have enough gray. You can always add water to your brush, tap it on your paper towel, and go over your gray. That'll kind of help move it a little bit better. So add water, tap it on your paper towel. Just drag my brush. So I want all the space right here to be gray. And again, I can kind of use my small brush, grab some of the gray and work its way up. Kind of get into those little areas. And the paint is wet, so it'll move with you. And if you do want to do a second coat, let it dry and then kind of go back and mix some white and a dot of black. If you need it to be lighter, go back for more white and give your Pusheen cat a nice second coat. And I would definitely do a second coat of mine, because do you see how you can see all those streaks? That means I can still see my canvas, but I want it to be more solid. So I would let mine dry for a couple minutes and then go back and dip my big brush in my white, dot of black, go over, and then I can add more white to it if I want it to be lighter with a second coat. And also notice this area is darker than this area, so you do want to have those two to be a little bit different from each other. Once you're done, wash and dry the brush or brushes that you use by twirling them around your cup. And then pat them on your paper towel at least 5 or 6 times to get those nice and clean. Perfect. At the next area, while I'm kind of letting that dry, I don't want to put my eyes or the whiskers or anything on there just yet because it's wet. If I put any of those things on it right now, it'll definitely mix. So let's avoid this area for just a little bit and kind of work on this outer area now that our light brown is nice and dry. The next thing I'm going to do is take this darker blue, so not your light blue, but your darker blue. I'm going to paint this shell with this darker blue with my small brush. It's a small little area, so I can go in there and outline my shape. I am going to go over the pencil lines just a little bit. and truly over the whole thing in the center, but in the outer area. Dark blue, outline the shell shape. And I'll help you find those lines later, this one and this one. And again, 2 coats, paint it once, let it dry, and go back over it a second time. And this one is going to be your darker of the 2 blues. And I outlined and I filled in to keep my lines nice and neat. There's that shape. Then I'm going to move on to my light purple shell in the middle. So this is going to be light purple. I'm going to wash and dry my brush really well so I don't have any of that blue. Small brush, purple paint. Again, 2 coats of this purple. So I'm going to outline and fill in. I go over those pencil lines. Use my small brush. If you want, you can use your big brush to fill in. 2 coats for sure. As you can see, a lot of that white canvas still poking through. Paint it, let it dry, and then go back over it. It's kind of going side to side. Side to side. Kind of following that shape. I do see that I missed a little bit of this light brown area, so I'm going to go back and touch that up really quick before I move on to the seaweed. That'll be next. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is wash and dry my small brush. So dark blue, light purple, better known as lavender, and then my green seaweed. And same idea, I'm going to take my small brush, outline, I'm going to kind of go over the area where it meets the brown. Be sure the brown is nice and dry. A little bit of a wiggle to it. And with this green, definitely 2 coats, maybe even 3. You can use your small brush or your big brush to fill in. It's kind of painting it in an up and down motion. Dark blue, purple, and then green. 2 coats on each one of them. It's just going to look a little bit cleaner. I'm going to wash and dry my small brush. The next thing I'm going to do is, after I've really washed and dried my small brush, you can even give your small brush a hug with your paper towel by wrapping it around it. So you want a really clean small brush. Now that I've kind of given this some time to dry, I can go in there and paint the pearls white and my star yellow. So small brush white paint. And I am going to go over the pencil lines just a little bit. Later on we'll outline them in black. 1, and I'm just outlining and filling in. Kind of in a round motion. Kind of keep the nice roundness of my pearls. Fill in. And then 1 more. I have the 3 pearls that are white. I can wash and dry my small brush and then outline and fill in with yellow for my star. And look at that yellow. It's definitely needing 2, maybe even 3 coats. this one. I'm just gonna go in there and fill it in. And I did go over my pencil lines too. Perfect. Then I can wash and dry my small brush. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas that I just painted in. The next area that I'm gonna kind of work on is this area, not this kind of ruffly area and not the end of the tail, but this area is gonna be your lighter blue. I'll use my smaller brush to outline, my bigger brush to fill in, and again, I would definitely give it 2 coats. So paint it, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go back with a second coat, and be sure both of your brushes are really washed and dried. If you're not done with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas, you can pause the video. But once you're ready, small brush, light blue, I'm gonna kind of go underneath these ruffly areas. I'm going to switch to my my bigger brush and fill it in. It's kind of moving with the curve, the tail. And again, I would definitely give it 2, maybe 3 coats of this light blue. I go back and outline this in my blue, just kind of clean it up. Be sure if your brown paint is wet, be aware you don't want the 2 wet colors to mix. 2 shiny wet paints, they'll mix, they'll find each other. All right, once you're done, you can wash and dry the brushes that you used. I'm just gonna twirl mine around my cup of water. And then dry them on my paper towels. Maybe give them a hug, make sure they're nice and clean. I won't put the pink down just yet because this is still too wet to put any colors next to without mixing. But now that my gray is hopefully a little bit more dry, if it still looks shiny, give it a little bit longer. I'm gonna go in there and create the eyes, the mouth, and the whiskers. So small brush only if you wanna watch first, and then you'll be up after that. I am gonna dip my small brush in my water, and I'm gonna twist it and bring it to a point, getting most of the water out of there. So a nice point, and I'll hold it where the gold is so I have good control. I'll dip it in the black. And kind of over here to the left of these 3 stripes and a little bit further down, kind of to the right of the star, I'm gonna make a small oval shape. It's better to start small because you can always build bigger. So to the left down and kind of where this point is, and to the right, you're gonna make a small oval shape. You wanna keep it pretty mini. You can always go bigger if you need to. I didn't really pass the bottom part of this star. And then I'm gonna come over here to the right, and then to the right of that gray stripe, I'm gonna go in there and make sure that the eyes are around the same size. And I can go in there with the black. And between the 2 and lower, a little bit lower down, maybe starting halfway from the oval, I'm gonna come down and then come down to the right. So if you want to watch real quick, I'll kind of start between the two ovals in the middle and come down, making an J shape. And just be on the tippy toes of your small brush. And then I'm going to go in there and complete this. Make the other side. Let's say you don't like the way your black lines came out the first time around. You can always let them dry and then paint the whole area, this whole area a gray, that light gray again, and then give yourself a second chance. So if you don't like what you did the first time around, let it dry, kind of create that light gray again, let that dry, and then build those two small black ovals in the J, and then kind of the connection right there. To the right and over, you are going to create some whiskers. Kind of to the right, I'm going to go in there and make a whisker going up, a whisker going down, and then a whisker in the middle, kind of like that. There you go. So a little bit of space and down to the right. Over here, there is going to be a whisker over here too, kind of poking out in the middle. Pearl, I'm going to go up a little bit. I'm going to come down a little bit. And then between the two, I'll go out a little bit like that. So cute. And then while I still have my small brush and my black paint, I'm going to outline my shells and my seaweed. Just remember you want you want to just barely push on your small brush. Go in there and make these 3 lines. Because the harder you push, the thicker the lines become. And you want to kind of keep your brush going until it's out of paint. So no short, choppy lines. You want to just kind of keep your brush going. So you have a nice, long, smooth line. So there's the shape of my first shell. Then I'll go in there for more black. I'll outline this one. And then I'm also going to have 2 lines in this shell. So kind of starting off on the bottom part, I'm going to come out this way. A little bit of space, and then this way. So 2 lines coming out. A little bit further up, a little bit further down. And then the seaweed shape. Be sure to, before you start outlining, your paints are nice and dry around these shapes. Looks like my green is still wet, so I might go back there later on and give my black another coat. Following those wiggles. So this line right here. Awesome. I'm going to put my small brush and my black paint to the side and let those 3 areas kind of dry. But while I'm waiting for them to dry, I can paint this area and that area pink. All you're going to do is get a scoop of white, bring it over to your red with your big brush and make yourself a nice pink. If you want it to be lighter, add more white. If you want it to be darker, just kind of grab some more red on your brush. And I'm going to use my bigger brush to fill in, outline and then fill in, I should say. So now that my kind of tail area is a little bit more dry, I can get closer to it. I'll go over my pencil lines. So there's that area. Again, if you want your pink to be darker, add more red. If you want it to be lighter, add more white. I'll even go over this area too. Outline and fill in. And once I'm done with the pink, I'll just kind of avoid that area for just a bit. I'll go back and I'll outline my star with my small brush and my black paint. And then the pearls. Be careful if your colors are still wet, give them some time to dry. And always be careful not to put your hands or arms in the black paint so it doesn't smear. Once I'm done with that area, I'm going to go in there and do kind of like the 3 U shapes. I have 1, 2, and 3. Then I'll go in there and outline around the pusheen. Start down here and drag my brush until it's out of paint. I can go up the other way if I need to. And I'll drag my brush around this kind of paw area. And I'm going to start up a little bit higher where that pencil line was. And drag, but don't touch the pink, that area. Drag up here, carry it along. Be careful of the pink, you want to stop right before. There's that area right there. There are just kind of some W shapes in the tail area. So I'm going to come up here and make kind of like a sideways W. And then maybe like a mini one right here. And maybe one more for the road right here, like your smallest one. So I have 3 areas. I'm going to go back and touch this up now that it's a little bit more dry. Perfect. And now that I've kind of given my pink and my blue some time to dry, I can go in there and outline this. I'm going to go underneath the belly. If your pink is still really shiny still, maybe wait a little bit longer. Go all the way from one side. Drag that brush to the other side. Got some blue in there. Then you can come back up the other way. Drag it from one side all the way up to the other side. Take your black paint and then I can start outlining this shape. Ooh. I can outline this shape. And then I'll pretty much go over the pencil lines and around the pink. So I'm gonna start from here and drag it down. Go, 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 go. I can find my way up, 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 up. Just be very careful to be on the tippy toes. And then I'm gonna go around these. Do 1, 2, 3, and 4. There you go. Then if you wanted to go back and touch anything up, I'd probably go over this line. Maybe when the pink is a little bit more dry, I think mine might still be a little bit too wet. If you wanted to go back and clean anything up, just be very careful. Remember, if a wet color touches another wet color, it's gonna mix, so you might need to give some things time to dry before you put a color next to it or on top of it when you go back and touch things up. But otherwise, there is your totally cute Pusheen Mermaid painting. I hope you had a good time. If you're still working on it, take your time, have fun, and thank you so much for joining our painting class.